Hello, everybody. Happy Memorial Hangover weekend, I guess. Good to be here. This is the second edition of the Broadleaf Inbox. And basically, if you're not familiar with it, if you haven't been here for these before, this is an opportunity for you to answer, for you to get your questions answered by me today. My name is Zachary Steele. I am the founder and executive director of Broadleaf Writers, and I'm also the author of the upcoming The Weight of Ashes. And like I said, this is an opportunity to get questions answered about writing or any problems you may be having on specific stories you're working on, anything about the business, anything about Broadleaf. We usually put our calls out for questions starting on the Thursday before we're going to have an inbox, and we gather them through our posts and through email and through questions that have been asked in person previously, and try to get these questions answered for you. So if you're joining in and you're there, just go ahead and ask questions in the inbox so that you can hopefully get your question answered today. And we'll see where this all goes. And hopefully this will be a benefit to you guys and we can keep doing it. Um, and I guess let's just get rolling. Um, we had a question from last week that is carryover, and it had to do with setting up the best tax protection for a writer. And the question is really important because for writers, especially ones who are getting advances or royalty payments or being paid honorariums or speaker fees, or doing any side work, editing or anything, all of that is income that can actually be taxed. And you want to limit the tax burden that you have on that. And the after conversations with accountants, I'm not going to get into the greater detail of it because again, I'm not here to give like real tax advice. But the advice that I've been given is the best way for a writer to protect themselves is to create a corporation, and you can name it whatever you want it to be. It can be your name, it can be a company name, it can be something related to the books you write, whatever you want to do. And the best protection is offered by an S corp. And to create an S corp, you can either do it yourself through LegalZoom if you feel comfortable doing that, or you can work through an accountant or an attorney or something like that. But what this does is it basically creates you as a business, and it gives you an opportunity to shelter yourself from the larger tax burden because you become an employee of your company. So therefore, every payment that you receive would be paid to that company, and those resources would then be funneled to you as payment for your services as an employee. And so when you file taxes, and I would highly recommend at this point, if you're doing this, to have an accountant who would take care of the taxes for you. Not only does this offer you better tax protection, but it also allows you to deduct a lot more um, from your home business because, again, you're operating a business out of your home. And so, therefore, again, it offers you greater protection. So, that's as much information as I have. I would highly recommend that if that's something that interests you, you do some research on an S corp or other versions of corporations, LLC, C corp, whatever. S corp is the one that was recommended. If you have an accountant, I would definitely recommend a conversation with them. But it is one way to shelter yourself against the tax burden of payments. Because I mean, otherwise you're getting paid for freelance work, and that tends to be taxed higher. You don't get taxes up front. You're taking them all out when you file at the end of the year. So again, if that's something that interests you, then do look into that and look for that extra layer of protection. Another question that we had last week that I did not actually get to, and may ultimately still not have an answer to is the question was, are there any agents that I'm aware of that are looking for short story collections? Honestly, there are agents looking for short story collections. The conversations that I have had with writers who have done short story collections definitely say that it is a very difficult market. It's not something that publishers are looking for as much as they used to. Oftentimes, these are done by smaller presses, indie presses, or to that end, self-publishing as well. So, though there might be agents looking for short stories, they're not as there are not as many of them. And so I would highly recommend if you are wanting to compile short stories or already have short stories that you want to put into a collection, that I would first look through smaller presses and see if there are any who are looking for short story collections in the genre of writing that you do. And please do remember, you need to make sure before you pitch your work that it is the genre that the publisher is looking for. If I come up with any further information on that, I'll be sure to let you know. We have a couple of questions that came in. Some relating to writing, some relating to the conference. The first one is, I've heard you mention the catalyst a few times. Can you explain what that is? And yes, I can. So in the elements of storytelling, you always have to have certain components in place that this isn't part of a formula. This is just the way stories are told. You always have to have a catalyst that drives your character or characters forward into the overall story. And a catalyst is an event that happens to your character, but not created by your character. So it has to happen to your character. For example, your character could just be somebody walking through a park who witnesses a murder, and that sends them on a journey of being a witness. They're part of the investigation. Maybe they become a suspect, whatever it happens to be. It pulls them into the next phase of the story where the world is turned upside down for them. I don't care if it's a romantic comedy or if it's a horror story. There has to be a catalyst that is the driving force that turns the world upside down for your character. So, but the most important thing is you have to remember that it is something that happens to your character that changes the world for them, not something that they specifically do. Um, Next question is actually one I just got that it has to do with the post I had placed this morning about the schedule, which is the schedule for the sixth annual Broadleaf Writers Conference that is now available. And we will still be adding some elements to it. And one of them that I mentioned was community storytelling. And I don't have a lot of information to give you because we're still working on the details of that and should have it relatively soon. But community storytelling, I mean, everything I want us to be able to do everything as a community. And I want us to have the opportunity with this conference, even though we're going to be virtual, to still see one another and still engage with one another. And one of the elements that the conference committee is working on is something that is like a storytelling hour, possibly as a reception welcome or a Friday night welcome or a Saturday night event, where we will invite some of our speakers to tell some short stories, 5-10 minutes, and then have attendees or members of the Broadleaf committee or board, or just all of us to have the opportunity to get up and tell short, brief little 5-10 minute stories that we can all just share and talk about and just have a good time. It's a bit like having a storytelling hour, an open mic type thing virtually. And so it is a community event, and I'm very excited about being able to create something like that. Um, so I think that answers that question. And then feeding off of community, I had another question. Thank you so much for preaching about a writing community. I moved here a few years ago and have wanted to find writers to connect with. How can I get more involved? And you're speaking right up my alley because I had a writing organization probably 15 years ago that I was so interested in their community that I almost moved to their city to become a part of it. It's very important to me, and the whole reason that I even began Broadleaf and why the board of directors that we have now and the conference committee that we have now are so passionate about fostering and creating it and making it bigger. Um, and so I feel you. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that you've discovered us. And I really do want everyone to be involved with the community. And there's so many different ways that you can do it. Whether that's when we're back in person doing volunteer work at our events, especially the conference. You could become a part of the conference committee going forward and help us plan the conferences each year. You can join the board of directors when we have openings. Always welcome to fielding inquiries on that one. Email me at Zach, at broadleafwriters.com for more information on that. And then also there's just becoming a member. And it sounds like a silly thing, but membership does a couple things. One, as we move into next year and start to have more in-person events, we're going to be able to create members only events. So you will be able to actually get there if you are a member. You also receive a discount on registration. For example, this year we have a lower rate for the conference, but as a member, you get $25 extra off of that. There are other perks and benefits that we put in there, including any kind of news that you may have as a writer that you want to include in our newsletter for community news. But also in addition to that, your $40 annual membership goes to the organization and it helps us fund things, whether it's getting more staples or whether it's paying for speakers, or programming. We do a lot of free programming that most organizations don't do, and we require funding to make that work. And membership funds are definitely something that are very useful in that regard. So, volunteer work, committee for the conference, becoming a board member, becoming a member of the organization, or just participating when we have programs, coming to programs, and as they're virtual right now, engaging in the chat and getting to know one another. I mean, our board members and committee members are often there and chatting often. So engage with them. It's the same advice that I would give a writer who wanted to get their book out. You have to get to know the booksellers, you have to get to know the librarians, you have to get to know your writing organizations so that you are familiar to them and they are familiar to you, and you have a core, a center that you can start from. Next question. Has anyone had any experience with self-publishing a short story on Kindle, or is it a waste of time? And I don't actually have an answer to that right now, but I will definitely look into it. I don't know anybody offhand who's done short story collections self-published on Kindle, but going back to the previous question, that is definitely a way that short stories are getting out now. I certainly think that it would be more advisable to do the full collection as a self-published thing rather than just individual short stories published. There's a lot of work that you have to do to get it ready. But I'll look into that a little bit more and see what information I can find. I don't think anytime you can get your writing out, I don't think it's a waste of time. So we just need to find the right answer for that one. That's all. Um, this one I've heard several times. I'm not getting any of your newsletters and I've missed a few programs because of it. Do I need to sign up again? For those of you who have not signed up for our newsletter, you can do so at broadleafwriters.com. I will tell you that email systems have changed a lot, as have the delivery system we use MailChimp. There's also Constant Contact and others that exist. And so many more of them are being flagged as spam. So the first thing, if you have signed up, if you know you've signed up for a newsletter, and I have actually communicated with this person and let them know that they are still on the active list, so they are actually receiving them. So check your spam folder to see if our newsletters are being delivered there, and that you should be getting 2 to 4 a month, depending on how much programming we have. So if they're showing up in your spam folder, then you just need to change the setting on it so that it knows that that's not spam. I know for Gmail, there are in your main page, there's the inbox, and then you have social media posts, and then our notifications, and then promotions. If you look in your promotions tab, our newsletter may actually be going there as well. So again, you just need to let the system know that that's not where that needs to go, that it needs to go to your main inbox, or just get in the habit of looking in your promotions or spam tab. It's unfortunate, and we have noticed a difference in how many emails are getting opened since the changes took place about 2 years ago. And we're just constantly trying to let people know, check your spam folder, check your promotions tab, wherever else it may go in your system, check there, and make sure that you're actually still receiving them. And if you're not receiving them, then let us know, and we'll re-up you and make sure that it's getting to you. Um, the last question I have right now is how can I learn to write better dialogue? And that is a super great question. Um, that I would definitely first of all encourage you to observe and make sure that you are listening to people and doing the best you can to not seem like a creep while listening. But listen to the way people talk, listen to the way they engage, listen to the pauses, or if you're going to add descriptions to help show the way somebody's feeling, because you never want to tell it. Watch their mannerisms. You can do this with people you're talking to, and see what they tell you even without speaking. And that's such an important part of writing. And it is actually, to me, a facet of dialogue because it is a way for a character to speak without actually using words. And aside from that, I mean, you have so many opportunities reading, watching movies, watching shows, to just observe how dialogue is done and to observe how people are using it and how they're having people speak now. I mean, sometimes it's done very poorly. So don't follow that example. But the best way to learn dialogue is to observe and to study. If you have a problem writing dialogue, some people are just naturally gifted with it. But if you have an issue writing dialogue, then I would definitely recommend uh, that you observe people and things. So I'm just checking here to make sure we don't have any questions that I see. So if you have any questions, we ask people watching. So if you have any questions, just throw them in there real quick, and I'll see what I can do to answer them for you. But going forward, this is something we want to be able to do regularly, at least once or twice a month. It won't be every week, but we will always make a call for the questions on Thursday across our social media posts and our platforms. And we will then so Thursday we'll put the post up. We'll run it through the weekend to make sure people have the opportunity to get the questions. You can always email me with your questions. I got a bunch of them this time that way. And then on Tuesday morning at 11 a.m., we'll go live on Facebook. I'll answer the questions, or I hope to have at some point in time, we'll have an agent or author or any of the like. And so it's like, yeah, I agree with Jessica. Listen to how people talk. There is a natural rhythm to the way people speak with dialogue, and definitely something that you can pick up on just by paying attention. But anyway, we'll post the inbox or go live on Tuesday. And then I actually go ahead and edit the video and throw it on our YouTube channel, which is just under Broadleaf Writers Association. And it's a good way to not only catch up on the questions we've asked that week, but the previous weeks. Not to mention, we have all of our Right Now programming there. There's also a few workshops that are available. We continue to build content on the YouTube channel so that you have opportunities to view it, watch it, listen to it, whatever you need to do to learn to become better at what you do with your craft. So, since I don't see any more questions for today, I'm gonna give it a we're done, and I will see you guys in a few weeks. We'll do another call for it toward the middle to the third week of June, and then after that, I'm gonna start looking to see what kind of guest speakers we can have come in and answer your questions. So, thank you all for participating. Thank you all for your questions. Thank you for being here, and best to you and your writing, and have a nice day.